Wow. I feel like it's been a minute since we've had a good old-fashioned shelf video. I think we're about overdue. FaB 2.0, baby. Sit back, relax, let's chat. The video starts right now. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Hometown TCG. You guys know me, my name is Josh, and I am here to discuss the biggest news in Flesh and Blood that just dropped the other day. We finally got the FaB 2.0 announcement, and it was huge. So shout out to LSS for doing just this organized and well thought out announcement, and I'm not going to waste my time going over the bullet points of this announcement. You guys know it by now. If not, go to Flesh and Blood's webpage, read that announcement, come back to this video, and let's chat about it. What I do want to do in this video, however, is talk about some of the things that I wanted to see. For those of you that follow my content, my posts on social media, or my position on the reaction phase of podcast I do with Louie over at Kitchen Table TCG, you know that often I lean into just this kind of stance of blind positivity, of just saying everything's going to work itself out. I love Flesh and Blood, so everything's going to be great. But as of recently, I've wanted more. I have put my own feet to the fire as a content creator and our game to the fire, saying this is what I want to see. And I've outlined a couple things that I wanted to see from this announcement. And first and foremost, I was critical in the past of the kind of structure and presentation of these announcements. I said for Flesh and Blood 2.0, this gigantic announcement that LSS was going to drop right on our heads, I needed to see this firm stance of direction and leadership. And that was more important to me than the content. It was more important to me that the company present itself as a unified thing with a vision and a path going forward. And boy, did they ever deliver. This announcement was clean. It was well thought out. It was well typed. It was well worded. It felt interesting to read. It kept me hooked. And the information that it gave us felt firm about a direction that LSS wants to take Flesh and Blood and us as a Flesh and Blood community. I was so stoked to see this announcement just nail that out of the park. So I just want to give a huge shout out to LSS, to James White himself, obviously, as the voice, the deliverer of the announcement, and anyone over there who helped put this announcement together. That is what I wanted to see, and you guys crushed it. So I guess whatever my opinion's worth, great job there. There were a couple things, if we want to talk about direction, there were a couple things that I was left a little curious about, but I want to reserve judgment for as time goes by. I'm still a little curious about the historic packs as far as they pertain to America, the United States mainly. It seems like a product that is awesome to bring these other regions into the game in their own language and make Flesh and Blood a worldwide game. And you guys know, I have always firmly believed the more people that could have their hands on Flesh and Blood, the better. So the fact that this product is out there, getting some different countries in different languages to experience the same game that I love this much, I am all in on that. But as the product pertains to America, I do get a little bit confused. It doesn't really seem to fit a niche as of now, but I've kind of resigned myself to the fact that this is a product with all the core set, all the big three, the first three being out of print, that if our community continues to grow, and if people continue to scoop up and want to play Flesh and Blood and want to experience the game, they will need these game pieces. So this product can fill that role. I don't see that being the case yet, but it's nice to know that if we experience another explosion like that of Monarch, we have a product there that can help us out. So I think the product can be good there. And the other portion of the announcement that I wasn't a big fan on, but I've come around a little bit after talking to some members of the Hometown TCG Patreon community, some players and members over at MinMax Games, I've started to come around on the notion of the living legend tied to an equipment. And my initial reaction to this announcement was, well, it just feels like a soft ban. Much like when we got Plunder Run banned, and Katsu and Lightning Lexi kind of got sideswiped by the Plunder Run ban, and kind of put into this like, oh, we got soft banned or backlash banned. This felt the same way. It's almost like, oh, if Katsu Living Legends out, and he takes Kadachi's with him to the Hall of Legends, then it feels kind of like a soft ban against Benji and even against Ira. But it has been pointed out that, again, these things are far off in the future for now, and it's an easier space to design a quality game in. Whereas if these equipment, or these weapons, rather, were allowed to be just legacy weapons that existed forever and ever and ever, every new card ever printed in the future of Flesh and Blood has to keep every weapon ever printed in mind when the card is designed. And that does become an overtly difficult task. So tying it to kind of that concept is something that has helped me just kind of overcome my anxiety with the weapon and living legend tie together rule. But some of the things that were mentioned, the change, the pivot from Cold Foil First Edition Unlimited to this single print run, this single stable print run, theoretically will, I don't want to say print to demand. Anytime someone says print to demand, it's always put as like a negative thing. No, we're printing, it could be printed as to what's needed and maybe printed. But then anyway, the single print run, then followed up by the historic supplemental white border kind of influx on what's needed into the market, is a very interesting route. It's something I had never considered them doing when I was thinking about this, and I'm excited to see what happens. Now, this is a big step, and it's going to come with big risk. And because of that, we need to give these things time to adapt and change. Whether jumping all over it right away and saying it's the greatest thing in the world, or it's the worst thing in the world, it's killing everything, both of those takes are just wrong right now, guys. The game is great. Flesh and Blood, the play experience, the community, it's all so fantastic that I'm smacking into the camera. It's an awesome environment. So we need to give it time to flesh and blood itself out. Couple things that stood out for me again, farther down in the announcement, the introduction of Commoner as an officially supported LSS format, meaning we could have Commoner armories, blew my mind. I know that I've never been like the big Commoner guy, but I have been craving, and I have been kind of banging my fists on my desk for ways to get new players into Flesh and Blood, and LSS answered that directly. They stated that not only is Flesh and Blood there for the competitive players, for the highly competitive, the top tier players, those who are going at it at Worlds, it's there for everybody, and they're ready to address that situation. And you guys know, I have been preaching about building this wide, casual player base, this gigantic, ever-growing foundation of people playing Flesh and Blood in any way, at any chance they get, not only at sanctioned events, around their tables at home, with their kids, with friend pods, at game nights, popping into their game store, whatever it might be. I have been desperately clamoring for that, and I think the addition of Commoner as an officially supported format does a great job at taking the first step in that direction. This means that when people want to play in official Flesh and Blood events, the barrier for entry doesn't feel so far off. It feels more obtainable. And since that feels more obtainable, people are more inclined to get together, play and build decks on their own, knowing it's just a small step into the next thing. Furthermore, game stores now have the ability to spend $30 and build Commoner decks that can just sit on the shelves for armory nights or play or casual play or whatever it is, and they can just rent them out to players or let players use them to experience Flesh and Blood at no major cost to them. And they can say, yeah, this exact game that we just taught you, or this exact format that you just played, you can come in on Tuesday nights, on Monday nights, on Wednesday nights, and you can play this exact game you just played, take home some sweet promos, meet the community. That is an awesome, awesome addition. I know that the guys over at Kitchen Table TCG, Louie and stuff, they've been the commoner guys, but I think that change is great. I know they announced PvE, guys, and I know the hype for PvE is at an all-time high. Actually, as I'm recording this, I know Rudy dropped a video and talked about the PvE experience in that video. I'm excited to see what happens. I think card games, TCGs, have traditionally had a really cool idea about PvE and how to interact and how that works, but we haven't seen it really catch on or take off yet. It's not something that we've seen the community grab hold of and run with. So if this can be the first time that we see PvE just become this monster format, this way of bringing everyone together and getting them to play Flesh and Blood, that will be so cool. And it was really cool, again, just to kind of see them hint at PvE and be like, oh, some more PvE, we can do this. That was really neat. I was pretty in on that. So all in all, guys, I think this has been a great announcement, but the biggest, I guess, buff and the biggest proponent of this entire announcement, the most important aspect of this whole announcement is saved for right now. It's that Flesh and Blood's announcement was received incredibly by you and me and the community. I don't even care that I'm smacking my desk. It was received in a great way by the Flesh and Blood community. The Flesh and Blood fans are out in droves right now. They're all hyping up FaB 2.0, all these changes. They're talking positively. The community is a buzz, and that right there shows a dedicated and passionate community that want to rally around a game. So few people are digging in to the niches and the exact references of the content, and more people are just rallying around a positive announcement for a game and a community they love. And in my opinion, that is a sign that Flesh and Blood is healthy, is growing, and has some place to go, because it's got dedicated people. It's got rabid fans like yourself, like myself, out here just constantly talking about it, grasping for any positive straw, any awesome thing that we can get our hands on, and taking it down and saying, hey, we're gonna blast this to the mountaintops. So guys, I wanted to take a couple minutes before I did this, before I did this video, to really gather my thoughts. And I think, like everybody, I went through the highs of the highs, I went through the lows and the lows, but it's important to mention at this point, guys, no one decision is going to kill Flesh and Blood. I got a couple Discord messages saying, hey, do you think this is going to kill Flesh and Blood? Do you think this is going to make Flesh and Blood the next Magic? No one decision at this point is going to do either one of those things. The community is too passionate and the game is too solid. So right now, what these announcements are going to do is they're going to show us a direction for our game and our community, and that right now is most important. The fact that we're rallying around this with such ravenous intent and loving everything right now is the most important aspect of this announcement, guys. I can't thank you enough for being around here. If you want to support me further, you can visit me at patreon.com/hometowntcg. $5 patrons can win one of 4 coachings being given away this month from Team Ascent, and $10 patrons, as the new benefit, get gigantic discounts from sealed cases of Flesh and Blood, courtesy of MinMax Games. Link found in the Patreon. I'll put a link somewhere in the video description. But huge shout out to MinMax Games for making that possible. Huge shout out for Team Ascent for coaching people in the Flesh and Blood, or in the Hometown TCG Discord. Those guys are awesome. We do have off meta week continuing this week, where Team Hometown TCG Ascent is fighting against the evil Team Kitchen Fable. We're doing off meta, none of the big 3, no Prism, no Starvo, no Viscerai, and those games are sick. And I joke, the Team Kitchen Fable's not evil. Those guys are awesome. It's such a cool environment to see. So I am rooting for Ascent, though. I gotta tell you, I'm rooting for Ascent. But thank you guys so much for hanging out. Again, like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And until next time, you guys know me. My name is Josh, and we'll see you around. Goodbye.